If you've ever had that feeling like someone is quietly rewriting your reality while you're standing right there, this is for you. I'm 17. My name is Maya Carver. And for months, my body kept betraying me in the same pattern, at the same time, in the same place. It always happened after dinner. At first, it was just nausea, the kind you try to brush off. Maybe I ate too fast, maybe I'm anxious. Maybe it's hormones, that's what I told myself because the alternative was too ugly to hold in my hands. Then it got worse. My hands would tremble like I'd had too much caffeine, even when I hadn't. My mouth would taste metallic, like pennies. My stomach would clench so hard I'd have to brace my arms against the counter just to stay upright. Sometimes my legs went weak, like the floor couldn't decide if it wanted to be solid. Once, I stood up from the table, and the room tilted so violently I had to grab the back of a chair to keep from collapsing in front of everyone. Every time, my dad's reaction got colder. His name is Grant. He used to look at me like I was the most important thing in his world. After my mom died, it was just the two of us for a long time. We weren't perfect, but we were close. He'd make my lunches. He'd sit with me during storms because I used to hate thunder. He'd tell me we'd be okay, even if it took time. And then Selene came into our lives. Selene is my stepmom. She didn't enter the house like a villain kicking down a door. She glided in like help, like warm tea and folded laundry, like a soft voice that said all the right things. She met my dad at a grief support group, and in less than a year she had a ring, a key, and opinions about everything I did. She was the kind of person who could say something cruel and make it sound like concern. "Oh honey, you look exhausted. Are you sleeping enough? Maya, you really should eat a balanced meal instead of snacking. Grant, don't feed into it. She's a teenager. They get dramatic." Dramatic, that word became a leash. The first time I got sick after Selene moved in, my dad hovered. He asked if I needed water, if I wanted to go to urgent care. Selene rubbed my back and murmured that she'd brew something soothing. The third time, my dad sighed like I'd spilled something on the carpet. The 10th time, he didn't even look up from his laptop. One morning, I was bent over the kitchen sink, gagging, sweat damp on my forehead, and my dad exhaled loudly like I was an inconvenience that kept reappearing. "Maya, again?" Selene's hand settled between my shoulder blades, gentle in a way that didn't reach her eyes. "Poor thing," she cooed. "Maybe you should stay home today. I'll make my calming tea. It always helps." The idea of swallowing anything she prepared made my stomach heave harder. "I can't," I rasped, wiping my mouth with the back of my hand. "I have a lab practical." Selene tilted her head, smile fixed. "You always push yourself," she said softly. "You remind me of your mother." My dad looked up at that, not at me, at her. Like she'd struck a chord he wanted to hear. I grabbed my backpack, palms sweating, and headed for the door. My legs were shaky, but I was stubborn. I told myself school was safer because I could control what I ate there. I could buy sealed snacks. I could drink from a bottle I opened myself. As my hand touched the doorknob, Selene called out behind me, "Wait. I made you a smoothie for the road, just something light. You've been having those episodes." She held out a travel cup, condensation beading on the side, her nails perfect against the lid. Her voice was sugary. Her eyes weren't. My skin prickled. "Thanks," I lied, forcing a smile so my dad wouldn't notice the fear in my face. "I'm running late. I'll grab something at school." Selene's smile sharpened, just for a second, like a blade catching light. "Of course," she said. I left so fast I didn't breathe until I was in the car. At school, my best friend Jules took one look at me and stopped walking. "You look awful," she said, not quietly. Jules is blunt like that. "How long are you going to pretend this is normal?" I leaned my shoulder against a locker and tried to steady myself. The hallway buzzed with voices and footsteps and the squeak of sneakers, and I felt like I was underwater. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. My voice came out thin. Jules didn't soften. She didn't sugarcoat. "Tell me what you ate yesterday." I frowned. "Why?" "Because I'm not doing this vague anymore, tell me." So I listed it: breakfast, dinner, a snack, a cup of tea Selene handed me after I complained about my stomach. Jules's eyes narrowed. "Okay. Now the day you almost passed out in gym." I listed it again: different food, same theme. Selene cooked, Selene served, Selene hovered, Jules leaned closer. "And last weekend when you stayed at my house?" I swallowed. "I didn't get sick." She didn't look surprised. She looked angry, like a switch flipped. "Maya," she said, "it's her." My throat tightened so hard it hurt. "That's insane." Jules held my gaze. "Is it, or is it just scary?" I tried to laugh, but it sounded wrong. Why would she? "Because you're inconvenient," Jules cut in. Because you're the one thing she can't replace. I stared at her, heart pounding. Jules lowered her voice. Your mom left you money, you told me, a trust. I hated how quickly my brain connected the dots. I hated that the dots were sitting there in plain sight, just waiting for me to stop protecting my own denial. My 18th birthday, I whispered. Jules nodded once. When do you get full access? At 18, I said. 6 months. And until then? Jules asked. My dad manages it, I said. He can use it for my expenses, but he can't touch the main amount. Jules's expression hardened. Unless you're not here. I felt cold, not like a chill, like my blood had decided to step away from my skin. Jules pulled out her phone and opened a folder. She'd been keeping notes, dates, times, photos, every time I got sick, what I ate, how long it took, what symptoms showed up. She even had a picture of me from 2 months earlier next to one from last week. The difference was brutal. My cheeks were hollow, my eyes were darker. My skin looked dull, like someone had turned down the saturation on my life. You've lost weight, Jules said. Not in a healthy way, you're fading. I stared at the pictures and felt tears sting, not from sadness, but from shock. I hadn't noticed how far it had gone because I'd been surviving it day by day. We need proof, I whispered. Jules nodded like she'd been waiting for me to say it. My cousin works intake at a clinic, she said. They can run urgent labs if we come in today. We're not waiting until you collapse for real. Skipping class made my stomach twist with guilt, but the thought of going home tonight, of eating anything Selene touched, made my hands shake. So I went. The clinic smelled like disinfectant and old magazines. The chairs were plastic and unforgiving. A poster on the wall showed someone washing their hands with a too cheerful smile. When the nurse took my vitals, she frowned at the numbers like they offended her. Then she asked questions. Real ones, not are you stressed? But when did this begin? And does it happen after certain meals? And does anyone else in your household have symptoms? When I said no, her mouth tightened. They drew blood, vial after vial. I watched the red fill the tubes and tried not to imagine it carrying something poisonous through me like a secret. Before we left, the nurse looked me straight in the eyes. Do you have somewhere safe to sleep tonight? She asked. The question landed like a slap. Jules answered for me. She's staying with us. The nurse nodded once like that was the correct answer. Back at Jules's house, her mom ordered pizza. The box came sealed. The drinks came in cans we opened ourselves. I ate slowly, waiting for the nausea to rise. It didn't. That should have comforted me. Instead, it terrified me more because it made the pattern undeniable. My phone buzzed nonstop. Grant, come home. Selene, your father is worried. Don't be selfish. Grant, you're upsetting everyone. Selene, I made dinner for you. You'll feel better if you eat properly. Then another message from Selene, soft and smiling in words, sharp and intent. I made your favorite tonight. Don't make this into a big thing. Jules read over my shoulder and muttered, she's trying to get you alone. I wanted to argue. I wanted to say no, she's just overbearing, she's just controlling, she's just complicated. But my body had been screaming at me for months and I was finally listening. The next afternoon, the clinic called, not with a hey, your iron is low voice. With a voice that sounded careful, like they were holding something fragile. We need you to come in immediately, the receptionist said. The doctor wants to speak to you in person. Jules's mom drove. Her jaw was tight the whole way. In a small office with a computer screen angled away from me, the doctor sat down and folded his hands. We have results, he said. I couldn't breathe right. He turned the screen toward me and pointed to a line on the chart. These levels indicate exposure to a toxic substance, he said. Not a one-time exposure, repeated exposure. My heart hammered against my ribs. I heard myself ask, like, poisoning? The doctor held my gaze. Yes, my stomach dropped through the floor. He kept talking, explaining how certain compounds can be introduced in low doses to cause symptoms that mimic illness, stress, anxiety, how it can be gradual, how it can confuse families, how it can make the victim look unreliable. My hands went numb. Can you tell what it is? I asked, voice barely there. He said it was consistent with a toxic compound that required confirmatory testing, but the pattern was strong enough that they weren't treating it as a mystery anymore. Then he said the sentence that turned my fear into action. We're contacting law enforcement. I expected the police to feel dramatic. I expected flashing lights and raised voices. Instead, a detective arrived who looked like the kind of person who reads everything twice and misses nothing. Detective Inez Park. She sat with me in a quiet room and asked questions without judgment. Timeline, meals. Drinks, supplements, who cooked, who served, who insisted. When I mentioned the smoothies and the calming tea, Detective Park's eyes sharpened. She nodded slowly and said, "I want you to do something difficult." She slid my phone toward me. "Call your father, put it on speaker." My throat closed. I didn't want to call him, not because I didn't love him, because I did, because I still wanted him to be the dad I remembered. The dad who made grilled cheese when I was sick. The dad who used to notice when my voice sounded off. But I dialed. He answered fast, already irritated. "Maya, where are you?" "Selene Espin, worried sick. Come home, you're making this into a whole thing." I swallowed hard. "I'm at a clinic," I said. "They did blood work, they found something. They said it looks like I've been exposed to a toxin over time." Silence, just long enough for hope to flicker. Then, from the background, Selene's voice floated in like perfume. "Grant," she's spiraling again. My dad exhaled in that familiar way, like I was a problem he was tired of solving. "Maya," he said, "this attention-seeking has to stop. You're always..." Detective Park leaned in, calm as a locked door. "Mr. Carver," she said into the phone, "this is Detective Inez Park. Do not leave your residence, officers are en route." There was a scramble on the other end, like someone grabbed the phone. Then the call cut off. Not a goodbye, not even a denial, just sudden panicked silence. That night, Detective Park called Jules's mom and told us they executed a search warrant. They went straight to the kitchen, because that's where the control lived. They found powders stored in wellness tins that didn't match the labels. A notebook that looked like recipes until you realized the measurements weren't for food. Gloves tucked behind tea containers. A bag hidden in a storage bin marked holiday decorations, full of things you don't keep in a family home unless you're planning something. Detective Park's voice stayed steady as she spoke, but her words still hit like punches. "She attempted to leave," she said. "Not casually. She had a bag, cash, documents. We stopped her before she got far." I sat on Jules's couch with a blanket wrapped around my shoulders and felt something strange. Not relief. Not yet. Just exhaustion so deep it felt like it had a weight. For months I'd been told I was dramatic. And now there were officers, lab results, evidence bags. Now the adults who dismissed me had to say the words out loud. This was real. Over the next week, I stayed away from my house. My body started to stabilize, slowly, like a plant that had been starved of sunlight and was trying to remember how to grow again. But the physical recovery wasn't the hardest part. The hardest part was my dad. He called, he left messages. Angry ones at first, like he couldn't accept he'd been wrong, then confused ones. Then tearful ones that sounded like they came from a place in him I hadn't heard in years. When Detective Park told me my dad would be questioned, I felt a sharp, guilty ache, like I was betraying him. And then another voice inside me answered back, clear and cold. He betrayed me first. He didn't have to poison me to hurt me. All he had to do was watch me disappear and call it drama. A week later, my dad requested a phone call through the proper channels. When I answered, his voice cracked. "Maya," he whispered. I didn't know. I swear to God I didn't know. My fingers tightened around the phone. "You didn't know," I said, "but I told you I was sick, over and over. I asked you to listen." He started crying, quietly, like he was trying to keep it from being real. "I thought you hated her," he said. "I thought it was jealousy. You thought what was easiest," I said, and my voice didn't shake like I expected it to. "You thought what kept your life comfortable." Silence. Then he said the words I'd wanted for months, the ones that came too late. "I'm sorry." And I realized something painful. An apology doesn't rewind time. It doesn't unsicken a body. It doesn't erase fear. It doesn't change the fact that when I needed protection, I got dismissal. So I said, "I can't carry you right now." He whispered my name like a plea. I ended the call, not to punish him, to save myself. Selene's case moved quickly because the evidence was organized. The kind of organized that tells you this wasn't a slip. It was a plan. The prosecution didn't have to paint her as a monster. They just had to show the pattern. The gradual harm, the convenient denials, the way she framed herself as the caretaker while I got weaker. She took a plea deal, not because she found her conscience, because she found her limits. My dad faced consequences too, not for attempted murder but for neglect, for refusing to act, for ignoring the obvious because admitting it would have shattered the story he wanted to live in. Months passed. My 18th birthday came with no celebration, just paperwork and therapy appointments and a strange, quiet peace. When I finally got access to my trust, the first thing I bought wasn't a car or a trip or something fun. It was safety. I moved. I set boundaries like walls. I put distance between myself and any voice that tried to shrink my reality. I still have moments where I catch myself hesitating before eating, like my body remembers what my brain wants to forget. But I'm better now, not because I was lucky, because someone believed me. Because Jules documented what I was too tired to track. Because her mom didn't treat my fear like teenage drama. Because a nurse asked the right question. Because a detective didn't need me to be perfect to be worth protecting. And because I finally stopped apologizing for trusting my own instincts. If you take anything from this, take this. If your body keeps sounding an alarm, it's not being dramatic. If a pattern repeats, it's not random. And if someone benefits from you being weak, you're not paranoid for noticing. I almost didn't notice in time. And the scariest part is, in my own house, the person serving dinner was the one trying to make sure I never got another birthday.